There's a subspecies of woman distinguished by an excessive kind of helpfulness, the burning desire to take care of other people's problems. Within a few days of entering this school, I had a rough idea that Suo Amane fit this busybody woman classification. But I have to admit, I wasn't expecting her to extend her meddling to me quite so quickly. Although I suppose it's inevitable that we'd run into each other a lot since we live in the same dorm, it seems like she's coming up to me at every free moment and playing the big sister.
何か困ってることはない？わからないことがあれば何でも私に聞きなさい。
I wish she'd put herself in my shoes. It's not easy having to politely shoot her down every time.
Yuuji-kun.
Not wasting any time, are you? I'm not sure how she got the idea in her head, but lately every time a break begins, Amane's been clinging to me from behind.
ほら、巨乳キャラだぞ。ちょっと垂れてるところがマニアックだぞ。
Then forcefully pressing her oversized lumps of breast blubber against me, as if to say, check it out, I'm the big tits character. The way they droop just a little is very popular with the enthusiasts. Look, you're heavy. Remove your chest flab from my head.
何その言い草。ユージ君おっぱい嫌いなの？
On the contrary, I'm something of a fan.
ならいいじゃん。もっと喜びなよ。若い男なら誰しもが夢中になるパイオツだぞ。そんな態度取ってると同性愛者だと思われてヒゲ面の親父に言い寄られるよ。
I'd prefer that. If a man sexually harasses me, at least I can knock him flat without feeling guilty about it. What do you want from me? If you have something to say, then spit it out already.
いやいや、今の授業で何かわからないところはなかったってね。ちょっとお姉さんぶってみたいだけなんだけどさ。
Thanks, sis. But I'm a big boy now, so could you please get lost?
ああ、照れちゃって。可愛いんだからもう。ぎゅー。
Stop that. I'm a dainty little thing. I'll break more easily than you'd think.
だからこうして優しく抱きしめてるんじゃない。
They say a snapping turtle won't release prey from its bite even if lightning strikes nearby. Amane is a similar beast. Once she clings to me, my only release is the sound of the bell. If this woman kept a pet cat, I'm positive it would go bald from stress within a week. I'm not confident my own hair will be safe if I allow these assaults to continue. I think it's about time I get my message across, even if it takes requiring a somewhat harsh attitude. Amane, that's about enough. Just as I begin to shout, Sakaki appears with spectacular timing.
スオさん、少しいいかしら。うん。
Yumiko grimaces at Amane's response. Her glare is expressive. I? Who are you supposed to be?
まあいいわ。次の地歴の授業で使うプロジェクターの準備があるでしょ。
ああ、そうか。今日の日直、私とマキナだ。
イリスさん一人で準備を始めたけど、放っておいていいの？
ごめん、ユージ君。私行かなきゃ。
Don't mind me.
急いだ方がいいわよ。またイリスさんが機材を壊す前に。
マキナー！待って！壊さないで！
She finally released me. What a noisy woman.
あれ、わざとああしてドタバタしてみせているのよ。ネクラだってバレるのがそんなに怖いのかしら。
What do you mean?
言葉の通りよ。まあ、昔のスオーさんのように無駄にうじうじしているよりはマシだと思って、私は諦めることにしたわ。
You make it sound like you're familiar with her past. Have you known Amane that long?
そうね。と言っても、知り合ってまだ1年程度だけれど。
So Amane wasn't always like this?
何？彼女に興味があるの？
I just don't understand the woman. Why does she drape herself all over me like that?
私が知るわけないじゃない。彼女に直接聞いたらどう？
I did. Just the other day, having stocked up on necessities for my new dorm life at the local supermarket, I was wandering leisurely around the area in front of the station.
あれゆうちゃんじゃん。何してんのこんなとこで。
Don't call me that.
なんでかわいいじゃん。
Spare me. I can't get any cuter than I already am. All the other girls will get jealous and start picking on me.
そういう言い回し、誰かに似てるって言われない？
Like who?
さあ、それより何？お買い物？
Amane pointed at the plastic supermarket bag dangling from my hand.
ボックスティッシュに乾電池、サラダ油にマヨネーズ、あとはレトルトのカレーにデンタルフロス、それともやし。
Look, you don't just start rifling through my bag.
カレーを買うなら南口の山陽より北口の松栄の方が安いよ。もやしも松栄さんなら1袋29円だし。
You're as knowledgeable as always. Do you wander around comparing prices all day long?
別に毎日ってわけじゃないけど、買い物のたびにチェックはしてるかな。
She's got an impressive devotion to economizing. I felt definite admiration, since my master was the sort of wild woman who bought things without even looking at the price tag.
牛乳、卵、野菜を買うなら松栄さん、お魚、お肉、トイレットペーパーを買うなら山陽さんって覚えておくといいよ。
Well, I'm not that caught up on the price. I appreciate the thought, but I just want a store that's convenient. It's all well and good to wander around looking for bargains, but when you consider the increased effort and consumption of time involved, getting too picky frequently turns into a loss.
まあ、男の子はそうだよね。
That's right. I'll be going.
帰るの？
Yeah, I did finish my shopping.
じゃあ、一緒に帰ろうよ。
As soon as the words left her mouth, Amane was standing by my side, firmly grasping my hand. What do you think you're doing?
何が？
This, of course. In demonstration, I raised the hand that Amane had gripped, or rather, captured, her fingers entwined tightly with mine. What am I? A kid who won't go home unless Mama pulls him there? I've got to admit I don't remember acting quite that adorably, so I'm very interested in where you're coming from here. Still gripping my right hand tightly, Amane raised the forefinger of her other hand against her lip and racked her brains for an answer.
幼い弟の手を引いて家に帰る優しいお姉ちゃんプレイ？
Oh, is that it? If it's role-playing, then I guess I have to play along. Did you really think I was gonna say that? Off! I forcefully yanked my arm free, shaking off Amane's grip.
もう嫌なの？
If you think that puppy dog face will make me act nicer out of guilt, you're very wrong. Don't flirt in public. That's a rule of mine.
二人きりならいいの？
Stop twisting my words. The point is, I can't think of a single reason why I should hold hands with you.
私がつなぎたいからじゃあ理由にならないの？
It's not an answer to the question why you want to hold hands.
私ね、過去の事故のトラウマで誰かと手をつないでいないと不安なのよ。
Some kind of obsessive compulsive disorder? What sort of accident was it?
それは秘密？
The hell?
やだ、怒らないでよ、冗談なんだから。
As she spoke, Amane took my hand for the second time. Joking? When did the joke start? Ugh, this is irritating. Take the left at least. I can't calm down when someone's got hold of my dominant hand.
別にね、手を握ることに深い意味なんてないよ。ただ、せっかく同じクラスになったんだし、仲良くしたいなってそう思っただけ。
Why get friendly with me?
それ理由がいる？君は子供の頃とか友達を作るのに損得や理由を考えてた？
Hard to say. Didn't have any.
じゃあ逆に聞くけど、どうして私じゃダメなのかな？
I wouldn't say I don't. I just want to understand your motive.
ならいいじゃない。仲良くしましょうよ。
You're a weird one.
うちの学校で変じゃない子って一人もいないよ、多分。
I'm going back.
帰ろう。
Having moved to my left as I requested, Amani didn't mess around any further. On our way back, she calmly acted her age. Holding hands really did seem to be enough to satisfy her. Doubts did run through my head. Considering it's only been a few days since we met, she's bizarrely friendly. But still, as she's a member of our class full of special cases. Despite her relative normal facade, Amane must have had her own unhappy circumstances. This hand-holding may well have some meaning for her.
で、彼女の過去を鑑みるにスキンシップを無下に断るのも気が引けるので、うやむやのうちに黙認していたら、最近富に目に余るほど過剰な接触をするようになってきたと。
We'll make a detective of you yet.
何を偉そうに。
Sakaki, what sort of accident was Amane involved in?
知らないわ。
If it's not something you can talk about, I'll leave it alone.
そうじゃなくて、本当に知らないのよ。あまり興味もないし。でも、文字通り交通事故だったという話ね。
A car crash.
何でも、彼女が乗っていたバスが事故を起こして、それが原因で心を病んでいるという話を聞いたことはあるけれど、手をつなぎたがる癖があるなんて話は過分にして聞いたことがないわね。
Then why was she so persistent about it?
だから知らないのよ。彼女視力が悪いようだし、それが原因じゃない？
Does bad eyesight make you want to hold hands?
さあ、視力が未発達な赤ん坊が何でも口に入れて舌で物体の形状や温度を認識するのと同じで、何でも触ってみないと落ち着かないんじゃないかしら。
A plausible theory, but I'm having a hard time buying it in her case. In the first place, are her eyes that terrible?
知らないわよ。興味ないって言ったでしょ。
I'm wasting my breath talking to you.
気が合うわね。私もたった今、あなたとの会話はつまらないと言おうとしていたところよ。
Guess we're done here. Or we would be, if I hadn't just spotted Komine Sachi out of the corner of my eye. Hey, Sachi, You have a minute?
はい、何でしょう。
Do you know anything in particular about Amane's past?
いいえ、私は詳しい話は何も。
So in other words, nobody knows the whole story.
あえて聞くような楽しい話題ではないし、自分から不幸自問ができるほどに回復している学生ならいつまでもこんなところにはいないでしょうしね。
True enough. As long as the person in question doesn't want to discuss it, I suppose I shouldn't pry any further. And in the first place, I'm a little dubious that Amane's past really has anything to do with holding my hand.
何か天音さんが思わず手をつなぎたくなるほどに好かれるようなことをしたのではないですか？
That's taking things in a new direction. Specifically, what do you think I did?
そうですね。例えば天音さんが街でヤンキーに絡まれているところを助けたとか。雨の日に捨て猫の入った段ボールにそっと傘を置いていったところを見られたとかね。
What's so funny? Well, whatever. Neither rings a bell. I have no memories of us being lovers in a previous life either.
そんな記憶があったら気持ち悪いわよ。この学園に男の人が転入してくるのは珍しいですし、何かこうクラスメイトの男子とそういうデートじみたことがしてみたかっただけなのではないでしょうか。
You think so? Incidentally, Sachi, does that mean you've got an interest in holding hands and going on a date with me as well?
手をつなぐこと自体は嫌ではないですし、俺と手をつなげデートをしろとそう強く命令していただければ絶対に断らないと思いますけど。
I see. Thank you for your valuable opinion. I'll file it under not helpful in the slightest. How about you, Sakagi?
私があなたと手をつないでデート？
Right. Got any interest?
困ったわ。どう答えればあなたを傷つけずに済むのかしら。
I get the picture. Thanks so much for your compassion. So in the end, asking around didn't get me anything resembling a clear answer. From what Sakaki says, it doesn't seem like Amane wants to hold hands indiscriminately. The mystery's only deepened.
大丈夫、マキナ。そこ狭いからぶつけないようにね。大丈夫。なんで言ってるそばからぶつけるかな、あんたは。
私はそういう生き物なのよさ。
Just at that moment, Amane enters the classroom pulling Makina by the hand, oblivious to our gossiping. I point my thumb toward the pair and their connected hands. You said Amane doesn't have a habit of holding hands, right?
まあ、イリスさんは特別。手をつないでおかないとふらふらとどこかへ行っちゃうような子だし。
Sakaki watches Amane and Makina as she speaks. Suddenly, she claps her hands together as if struck by a burst of sudden insight.
あなた、あの子と同列に見られているのではないかしら。
Say what? Wait, what? I've been put in the same category? With a kid like this, who you half expect to get lost tottering after a butterfly? What a seriously unpleasant thought.
スオさんは面倒見がいいのよ。なんていうか、言葉は悪いけど、きっとダメ男が好きなんじゃないかしら。
I appreciate that you're probably trying to help, but that's basically an indirect way of saying, you look like a hopeless man.
そう言ったつもりだけど。
Sakaki, could you please stop rubbing salt in the wound without even realizing it? It kind of stings.
あら、心外だわ。 これでも随分と高評価しているつもりなのだけれど。
Mind answering one last question for me?
何かしら。
Is there even a single normal person in this school?
言ったでしょ。まともならこんな学園になんていないわよ。あなたを含めてね。
True enough. Don't think you've got some special variety of unhappiness. Sensing the admonition underneath Sakaki's words, I feel the stirrings of something like shame. Whether it's normal or not, this student life isn't bad in its own way. I've started to like this place enough to reach that conclusion. A hobby is a window that gives you a fresh perspective on the world, or so my sister said. But when I was a kid, struggling through my daily life was about all I could handle. I disliked and avoided change, even when it might have brought me something new. So my sister's recommendation was to at least try reading books. That sister of mine was an unbelievably voracious bookworm herself, and she began to push the one she finished on me. I soon picked up a reading habit, although I didn't find any particular meaning in it at the time. My sister is dead now, as are my parents and my master, yet I'm still reading. The sister who taught me to read books, the parents who weren't angry at me when I was reading books, and the master who praised me for reading books, buying me as many as I wanted. I'm grateful to them now, since I've found some meaning in the act of reading.
風見くん、
Hmm?
今少し時間大丈夫かしら。
Yeah. I turn around in response to Yumiko's greeting, and find her carrying a sizable load of paperback and hardcover books.
読み終わった本を持ってきたのだけれど、読む？
Sure. Appreciate it, as always.
いいのよ。私も読み終わった本の始末ができて楽だから。
As anyone with a long-term reading habit is well aware, books pile up before you know it. That said, it's hard to just throw them away, and selling them to a used bookstore feels disrespectful to the author. The ideal is to find another avid reader to dump them on. Incidentally, before I came, Sakaki had apparently been pushing the book she finished onto the library. By now, she's established her own private shelf there, full of pleasure reads. Most likely she spotted me by coincidence as she was carrying her books there, and figured she could save herself the walk. Heavy, right? Here. I slide my hands into the book Sakaki is carrying.
ちょっと。
Watch it. Don't take your hands off yet. The books are gonna fall.
あなたの手が私の手に触れているのだけれど。
Of course it is. Don't worry. My hygienic standards are higher than you might expect.
そういうことじゃなくて、もう。
You complain too much. Alright. I've got a hold on them. You can let go.
少し無神経よ、あなた。
That's so. Anyway, I'll gratefully read the books. When I finish one, I'll return it to the Sakaki collection. So if you want to reread any of them, they'll be in the library.
わかったわ。それじゃあ、私は失礼するわね。
Yeah. I take a quick look at the titles of the books I'm holding. Sohei Akai's The Decisive Pudding Battle. Kumabata Takaru's Yesterday's Black Cat. Hirao Atsuko, The Exit of the Desert. Seno Takumi, Professor Takeda's Dinner. Ethan Crow, An Insolent Woman. Shinonome Kadzuma, You Blew It, Amori. Although she reads quite a variety of genres and authors, it seems that Sakaki fundamentally likes whodunits. Of the 6 books she passed to me, 4 are mysteries. Come to think of it, I could easily see Sakaki sitting at a detective's desk, using her brains for a living. Flipping open one of the books, I speak toward the shadow of a nearby pillar. Makina, how long do you plan on hiding there? I'm not mad or anything. How about you come out?
なんで私だってわかったのよさ。
Your aura is too crude. I can sense you even when you're hidden.
そんなこと言われたの初めてなのよさ。
I just said that for the hell of it. You were casting a shadow on the floor. I could tell it was you from the height in that shaggy head.
隠れるにしても雑すぎってこと？
Pretty much. Why were you hiding in the first place?
別に隠れてたわけじゃないのよさ。お兄ちゃんとユミちゃんのお話が終わるまでじっと黙ってただけなのよ。
You don't get along with Sakaki?
そういうわけじゃないのよ。でもユミちゃんはきっと私のことあんま好きじゃないと思うのよさ。
On the other hand, I'm pretty sure Sakaki said something like, I think Irisu-san avoids me on purpose. You're in a state of mutual wariness. Well, I suppose that does happen sometimes. Sakaki, a guarded person who doesn't reveal her thoughts easily, and Makina, who feels most secure when she's burrowed her way into someone's heart. Their personal comfort zones may be incompatible. Well, it's foolish to expect everyone to get along with everyone else in the entire world. There's no need to forcibly push these two together, but at the very least, maybe a mutual compromise is called for. I don't think Sakaki dislikes you, Makina, so try not to hate her yourself.
だから別に嫌ってないし、ただなんていうか、何を話していいのかもわかんないし。
I see.
むしろ逆に聞くけど、お兄ちゃんはどうやってあの気難しいユミちゃんと年頃な間柄になったの？
Well, it's not like we're particularly close, but we have a common interest in books, so I guess that helped get things started. Of course, I get the idea Sakaki mostly views me as little more than a convenient book disposal. After all, it's hard to say you're friendly with someone who scowls so bluntly just because your hands touch. Makina, do you have any hobbies?
趣味？そうね。強いて言えば散歩ぐらい？
Solo?
大抵一人で。
That's not good.
なんでさ、一人遊びってなんかちょっとエッチっぽくてよくない？
No. Also, no.
あれ？
At the company I work at, solitary hobbies are fundamentally discouraged. They place a lot of stress on keeping up some form of communication with others. When it comes to the interests of the employees, the basics are alcohol, women, and gambling. But it's a bit difficult to own up to that in front of the boss. Therefore, when asked, some of them just came up with a safe-sounding, conventional hobby, like shogi or go. When the superiors reacted favorably to those answers, the end result was that the hobbies column in the employee survey data recorded an overwhelming number of shogi buffs. Although going with the flow is pretty much the defining Japanese characteristic, it's still something of a pathetic story. Well, having given them a nice, safe hobby like reading myself, I can't really say too much.
Huh?
Nothing. Just talking to myself. Incidentally, once you're the one giving the surveys out, in other words, an executive type, the hobby of choice would be gardening. Not something you can do when you're living out of a barracks.
趣味ってそんなに大事？
Yeah, it's better to have some interests than not, even if they're really worthless. For example, the aforementioned employees and their wine, women, and song. Even then, if they can help you find a single common interest with someone, your hobbies are worthwhile as social lubricant, even if they're worthless in every other respect. This is something I heard secondhand from a senior employee at my job, but sometimes you get cases like this. This is the story about a man who took a business trip to Gifu Prefecture. It was a group expedition, with the purpose of field testing new equipment that had just been deployed throughout his company. At the time, the man in question was a new employee, not even out of his training period. Nonetheless, he found himself taking a long, bumpy ride into the mountains on a company bus, accompanied by the chief of his special department. The man didn't have the first clue why he had been selected for the trip, let alone what he'd be expected to do on it. To make matters worse, he was sitting next to a powerful superior he barely knew. In short, the man was about to ready to vomit from sheer terror and anxiety. He fought desperately to keep calm, but his face was pale as a sheet. The bus finally reached its destination at the foot of Mount Kinka in Gifu after many unpleasant hours. But the man's relief was temporary, as his boss informed him that they would be attending a large banquet in a high-class inn that night. Corporate banquets are basically a cruel kind of talent show. New employees were expected to perform some skill for the amusement of the gathered VIPs. The newbies from each department mounted the stage one after the other. Quite a few croaked out popular karaoke ballads with stiff faces, but there were also some pretty competent juggling acts. Even one stand-up comedy duo, which got some laughs doing imitations of superiors. The man watched the other acts with a fluttering heart. His turn was approaching fast, but he was basically a walking, breathing lump of artistic incompetence, an asocial type without a single talent worth performing in front of others. Just as he was wondering whether he could escape by pretending a sudden illness, the man was practically kicked out onto the stage by the senior employees. For lack of a better thought, he started to sing. But the man didn't know any popular songs. Worse, he couldn't remember any of the standard folk songs or children's music that might have worked in a pinch. The man went instead with the theme song from a superhero TV show, Lightspeed General Makarov, which he loved as a kid. By this point, he couldn't help but feel a growing sense of despair. This was, of course, the man's first time singing in public, and he didn't have much of a voice. Within moments, he was showered in jeers from the audience. "The hell are you singing? What's wrong with you? Hey asshole, are you just making that up on the spot? That's enough! Get off the stage! You suck!" Although he wasn't the type to break down in tears, the man felt a deep urge to dig himself a hole and crawl into it. Only sheer stubbornness carried him through to the last humiliating note. When it was over, the man quickly bowed from the stage and raced back to his seat. On that walk back from the stage, the man had a thought. I wish I'd learned a popular song or two.
つまりカラオケが趣味だったらいらん恥をかかずに済んだってお話?
Well, if you look at it that way, you're right. But the story isn't over yet. With the equipment test wrapped up, the man had returned to his new assignment at a branch office in Shizuoka. Someone called out to him as he was dealing with the transfer paperwork. So, you were the newbie who sang Dai Makarov at the banquet in Gifu. The man's breath caught in his throat. He'd figured out by now that the main job of his superiors was to flaunt their authority by picking at the smallest mistakes, and then rubbing his nose in them. And the manager speaking to him was infamous for his zealous leadership of his underlings. Frankly, the man was about to ready to piss his pants. He swallowed and chewed his lip, bitter thoughts running through his head. What's he gonna blame on me? How long will I have to grovel? But but the manager's words took him by surprise. I loved that show when I was a kid. The man blinked, dumbfounded by this unexpected development. You from Hiroshima, kid? According to the manager, Dai Makarov reruns were played relentlessly every weekday afternoon on a local station. In other words, practically every child in Hiroshima grew up watching the show. But the man wasn't a Hiroshima native. In the area he'd lived in as a child, the children's Encore theater program would broadcast old episodes of the show every summer. He just happened to see a few. Even so, the manager must have been really pleased to find a fellow Dai Makarov fan, as he began to pull a few strings to the man's benefit. One night after work, the man returned to his bed in the company dorm to find that a white plastic bag had been tucked underneath the sheets of his neatly made bed. He didn't remember putting it there himself, and when he asked around, no one else had any idea where it had come from. The bag contained a huge jelly roll and a cup of instant ramen. As a new employee, the man had to eat dinner at a set time of 5 p.m. By 10 p.m., lights out time at the dorm, all of the trainees would be starving. This supplemental meal was therefore a very considerate present. The man had an idea who was responsible. Most likely, his Dai Makarov buddy at the top was the only one who could have pulled this off. On top of the early dinner time, learning the ropes as a trainee is particularly tiring. His Dai Makarov buddy had probably figured he'd have a hard time getting his young buddy to fall asleep on an empty stomach. The man actually didn't have a particularly big appetite, and wasn't the type to be troubled by irregular meals. But then again, as a new employee, he didn't have much money he could spend freely on snacks and such. A little sugar was extremely welcome. If I get caught, they'll be punished too. So the man split his smuggled food with the other trainees in his room, and they all devoured their shares greedily. As the presents from his Dai Makarov buddy, at the time they were known as the Dai Makarov supply drop, continued, that talentless, quiet, and hobbyless triple threat contender for the asocial crown suddenly found himself getting along with the group in the dorm, all thanks to the Dai Makarov connection. And 3 months later, when the man's training period came to end, it was once again his Dai Makarov buddy whose recommendation got him assigned to the Chiba branch office he'd hoped for. In other words, when it comes to hobbies and interests, anything is fine. Finding friends you can talk about some common interest with is a really valuable thing. Sometimes something that small can be the trigger for gaining a huge leg up in life. That's the moral of the story.
なんかよくわかんないけど、ダイマカロフって大きなマカロンみたいで美味しそうなのよ。
I thought this was a pretty meaningful story. I guess it didn't quite get across.
要は一人で散歩したりお人形さんごっこしてばっかいないでいろんなこと経験しとけってことなのね。
Well, more or less. When you're young, you should mess around with all sorts of things. Just try to find something that grabs you, even if it's stupid crap.
お兄ちゃんは今なんか夢中になってることあるの？
After all that spacing out, that's a pretty sharp question. I glanced down toward the pile of borrowed books I'm holding in my hands. I suppose, right now, I don't have anything other than reading that qualifies.
ロールケーキ食べたいね。
You aren't really listening to a word I say, are you? Well, not to say that you need to.
さっきのお話で出てきたロールケーキって単語が気になっちゃったのよさ。あとマカロン。
Go get a money to make something?
ぜひそうしよう。お兄ちゃんも後でアマネーのお部屋においで。一緒におやつ食べようよ。
Yeah, if I'm in the mood.
じゃあまた後でね。
I see. I learned my own lesson from this conversation. If there's a mention of food in the middle of a story, Machina won't remember another word. I'll have to be more careful next time. Hey everyone, J2 John Jeremy here. Thanks for watching this video. Be sure to click on subscribe and the bell icon to ensure you're kept up to date on the channel. Until next time, so long and take care.